You know that digital is coming. It changes the way we work, it changes the way we think. If you can program it, a machine can do it. Our added value as humans is not about following processes, it's not about repeating things. Before, following processes was enough. It is not anymore now. 4 main skills or competencies are necessary to create value in our modern world. To learn, think and interact. Activate skills. I really believe that HR is the core function of the company tomorrow. You know that digital is coming, like winter is coming. The digital is coming, and it does change a lot of things. It changes the way we work, it changes the way we think, it changes the way we create value. During the 20th century, the way for people to create value in a company was to follow processes. Build processes, follow processes. And that worked well. I mean, in a very industrial era, it worked really well. Except that now, if you build a process, your process may last 6 months, a year, but then it breaks because people that follow the process will make mistakes because the environment is changing a lot. There are a lot of parameters that are not fixed anymore, that are changing. That's the first thing. The second thing is that all the things that we can do once and then repeat them again and again and again are not the property of humans anymore. If you can do it once and then repeat it, it means that you can program it. If you can program it, a machine can do it, probably better than you will, because if, for example, you know perfectly how to look at a CV, I'm not saying that a machine can today, but if you know how perfectly to look at a CV, and you have to look at 200 CVs, after the 20th CV, you might become a bit tired and lazy and not look at everything. The machine won't do that. The machine will look the 200 CVs with exactly the same process. And in that way, the machine will be better. If we consider that the machine can take into account all the parameters that the good recruiter would, which is not the case today. But my point is to say that everything that is standardized, everything that is a process, can or will be done by a machine, sooner or later. Meaning that our added value as humans in a company is not about following processes, it's not about repeating things. It's about doing things that do not exist, doing things that are not planned, not processed, meaning creating. So that's what we call the 21st century skills. That's the very core of my PhD. What are the skills we need in a digital era to keep creating value in organization and more generally in the society? 4 main skills or competencies are necessary to create value in our modern world. Actually, these skills were very useful before too, but before following processes was enough. It is not anymore now. And these skills are called the 4 C's for creativity, critical thinking, communication, and cooperation. In other terms, it's your ability to learn, think, and interact. Basically, school as we know it is preparing students to know things. Meaning that, as of 2018, it is preparing students to compete with a USB key. That's what standard education is about, making sure that students know things. For those who know education outside of France, and for example, in England or in the US, it's a bit more human-centered. You learn to become someone before just to know things. And maybe, yes, people know less things than we do in France, because in France we're a country of experts, nation of experts. But you learn much more about personal development and about self-awareness and all these things. The point is that creativity is not just a word or a process, it's a mindset. Creativity is a mindset, and companies, as of today, do not have the mindset to encourage creativity. Most of the people ask now, we need creative people. We want to recruit creative people. You will recruit creative people, but the organization is not prepared to welcome creative people. So they will disorganize your company. And most of the time, you will either make sure they get out of the company or they will leave by themselves because they don't fit in the system. And creativity is not about fitting in the system, it's about challenging the system to find solutions that have not been found yet. That's when critical thinking comes in. Solutions that are relevant and that actually create value. Solutions that create more value than they destroy value. Because when you all know Schumpeter, but it's really hard to create without having to give up something, to be polite. Meaning that if, I'm not saying this is the case, but if tomorrow or in 5 years or 10 years, you want to build a new LVMH based on new principles of creativity, of autonomy, of long life learning, I don't know, all the things that are very trendy today in some companies, you'll see that it is very hard to create a new world without getting rid of the old one. I really believe that HR is the core function of the company tomorrow. I don't believe it will be with the same people. Unless people adapt, of course. But HR as it worked during the 20 last year, I don't believe this is the future. Some strategists in the organizations have realized that actually to make sure the company would stay competitive within the 5 or 10 next years, it would need to lay off about 30% of the people and hire some others, but with completely other skills because of robotization, because of all of this. And it's really hard to fire 30% of your workforce without spending a lot of money and without a great social cost. So companies start to think. They start doing a bit more forward thinking. And this forward thinking is what is being called strategic workforce planning. Strategic workforce planning is about anticipating the need for skills. Let's say that you know how your business is going to move, to evolve in the next 2 years. And you know that you will need that many skills in every field. You will need, let's say, 2,200 full-time equivalent for data analysis. You will need that for every skill. And on the paper, workforce planning is great because you do that, and then you do the other part, which is what do I have today? What are the skills I have today? And then you fill the gaps. You see, okay, so tomorrow, there are all the skills that I don't have yet, so I have to source them. And there are all the skills that I don't need tomorrow. They'll be obsolete. So what do I do with these people? So that's when the role of HR is getting rethought. HR tomorrow, I mean, it already is today. It's just not structured like that. But HR tomorrow is just a function of skills sourcing. Anything you do in HR is about skills sourcing. It means sourcing on the short run, the medium run, and the long run. Recruitment is a short-term skill sourcing. Training is a mid-term skill sourcing. Anticipation, workforce planning, all these ways are long-term skill sourcing. And actually the role of HR is moving that way, but centered on skills. And when I say skills, I don't mean expertise. Expertise is one thing, but you also need skills for expertise you don't have and for problems you don't know yet you have. meaning that you will have to attract new skills. That will be employer branding, that will be recruitment, meaning that you will have to develop skills, that will be learning and development, that will be mentoring, that will be leadership, that will be all the things you have about L&D. That will mean retain skills, so meaning that you want people to stay in the company, or if they don't stay, you want them maybe to come back one day. So that's recruiting, and that's also ambassadors program, and that's everything you have about all the perks, all the things, comp and ben, everything you have to actually retain people. But I'm not talking about people now, I'm talking about skills, to retain skills, because what makes people interest for a company is the skills this person has. Not only the expertise, once again. It can be all his personality, everything. Let's summarize that with skills blocks. And so, attract skills, develop skills, retain skills, but also anticipate skills, anticipate the need for skills, because that's when you actually create value for the company strategy, when you're able to anticipate your need for human capital, for human workforce. And the fifth one, that is to me the most important, and that is the most not neglected, but less structured, is activate skills. Meaning that if you have a lot of great skills in your company, but you don't make sure that they're used 100%, then you didn't really do your job. Because your job is not only to make sure you get skills, it's make sure that these skills are used. All this framework is coming slowly, but it is reshaping HR function. And you see, all the functions you have today will be useful tomorrow. It's just that they will be orchestrated in a different way and centered on the use of a skill and the ability to source this skill. You'll be able to master it, but what will make the difference of HR? That will be everything that you cannot process. Meaning that sometimes to retain someone, you can't just have the grid of comp and ben and say, oh, see, yes, the grid say you should be happy. No, he's trying to make the difference as a human, to actually spot all the weaknesses of the system and use empathy, use cooperation, use communication, use creativity, critical thinking, to actually make sure that the system is properly working according to its objectives. And that's the HR functions of tomorrow. And I believe that the 21st century skills will be very useful in the human resources function, because that's where you will need the most to be, let's say, a differentiated human compared to a machine.
So thank you for this disruption session. The objective of today was really to open your mind, to raise your awareness on different ways of thinking the future of HR. I hope that you liked it.